In the dividend news this week, we're going to talk about 5 companies that have announced reductions in their dividend, 1 that has suspended their dividend, an interim dividend, a couple of share repurchases, and 29 companies that have announced increases to their dividends. And we're starting right here with Premium Brands, who are offering a 10% increase to their dividend, giving them a forward yield of 3.36%. This company goes ex-dividend on March 30th with a pay date on April 14th. Another double-digit increase is coming out of Andlauer Healthcare Group, and they're raising their dividend by 14.3%. The forward yield is 0.7%. They go ex-dividend March 30th with a pay date on April 17th. Algonquin Power and Utilities has announced a decrease in their dividend by 40%, and they're suspending their dividend reinvestment plan. Forward yield is still pretty high at 5.66%. They go ex-dividend March 30th with a pay date on April 14th. Medifast has announced a small increase in their dividend of 0.6%. Forward yield is at 6.32%. They go ex-dividend March 27th with a pay date on May 9th. We have a 10.5% dividend hike from UDR, giving them a forward yield of 4.21%. Ex-dividend date is on April 7th with a pay date on May 1st. Equity Residential is raising their dividend by 6%, forward yield at 4.5%. The ex-dividend date is on March 24th with a pay date on April 14th. And I just wanted to take a moment to draw your attention to the chart on the right. Here you're going to see some pretty good metrics about each of the companies that we're reviewing today. You'll see how they're performing in the last 5 days, funds from operation, price to funds from operation in this case, dividend rate, yield, short interest, market cap, and volume. And let's keep going. And here we are on Tiptree, who has announced a 25% increase in their dividend. They went ex-dividend on March 17th, and their pay date is on March 27th. Williams-Sonoma has announced a 15% increase in their dividend, giving them a forward yield of 3.04%. And in addition, the company board just approved a new $1 billion stock repurchase authorization, which was effective on March 16th. They go ex-dividend on April 20th with a pay date on March 26th. BK Technologies has announced that they are suspending their dividend with their goal to redirect their resources towards their own company growth. InvenTrust Properties is raising their dividend by 5%. The forward yield is 3.93%. They go ex-dividend March 30th with a pay date on April 14th. HCA Healthcare actually went ex-dividend on March 16th, but they did announce a 7.1% increase to their dividend. The pay date is on March 31st. The title of this news is a little bit misleading because all they're talking about is the ex-dividend date, but Taiwan Semiconductor just announced a decrease in their dividend by 4.8%. The ex-dividend date, again, was on March 16th with a pay date on April 13th. CRH, who offers a semi-annual dividend, has announced a 329.2% increase to that dividend. The ex-dividend date is on March 16th, and it's payable on May 11th. Douglas Dynamics announced a 1.7% increase to their dividend. The ex-dividend date was on March 16th with a pay date on March 31st. Goldfields has announced an increase in their dividend by 35.7%. The dividend yield in the trailing 12 months is 3.56%. This company went ex-dividend on March 16th and has a pay date on March 30th. Grief has declared a 1.4% increase in their dividend. Ex-dividend date was on March 16th with a pay date on April 1st. Finvolution Group has announced an increase in their dividend by 4.9%. The ex-dividend date is on April 12th with a pay date on May 5th, and their forward yield is at 4.79%. Total Energy Services is raising their dividend by 33.3%. The forward yield is 2.8%. Ex-dividend date on March 30th with a pay date on April 17th. RLJ Lodging Trust has announced a 60% increase in their dividend. Forward yield is at 3.02%. Ex-dividend date on March 30th with a pay date on April 17th. Trinity Capital has announced an increase to their dividend by 2.2%. Forward yield is a whopping 15%. They go ex-dividend on March 30th with a pay date on April 14th. We've got a 16.7% increase from Decisive Dividend Corporation. And I had to know, what does this company do? Well, they actually sell gas and wood-burning stoves and fireplace inserts. They have a forward yield of 6.77%. Ex-dividend date is on March 30th with a pay date on April 14th. We've got a 10% increase coming from Vox Royalty. The ex-dividend date is on March 30th with the pay date on April 14th. Annaly Capital Management has announced a dividend cut by 26%. They go on to say that they believe that the quarterly dividend of 65 cents a share, which represents approximately 12.5% yield on the current book value, allows them to appropriately manage the portfolio within conservative risk parameters. We've got another increase coming from Realty Income of 0.2%. Forward yield is at 4.84%. Ex-dividend date on March 31st with a pay date on April 14th. Calavo Growers, producer of avocados and some other perishable goods, has announced a decrease in their dividend by 65.2%. The forward yield is at 1.72%, ex-dividend date on March 23rd with a pay date on April 6th. Some old news for you all who might have owned shares of U.S. Metro Bank is that they announced an interim dividend of 3 cents a share. The ex-dividend date was on February 27th and the pay date was on March 15th. So likely if you own shares of this company, you already know this. And Parkland has announced a raise in their dividend by 4.6%. The forward yield, 4.69%. The ex-dividend date is coming up on March 21st with a pay date on April 14th. Manhattan Bridge Capital has reduced their quarterly dividend by 10%. Check out their ticker symbol, LOAN. The forward yield is still pretty high at 8.17%. Ex-dividend date in April on the 7th with a pay date on April 17th. 25% increase coming from Interparfums. The ex-dividend date was on March 14th, so shareholders can expect to see their payments on March 31st. I feel like I'm reporting some old news today. Here we have Installed Building Products, and they went ex-dividend on March 14th, and pay date is going to be on March 31st, but it was a 4.8% increase, so if you own shares, you're getting a bump. We've got a 4.2% increase coming from Enterprise Financial Services. The ex-dividend date was on March 14th with a pay date on March 31st. The trailing 12 months yield for this company is 2.01%. 1.6% increase coming out of Northwestern, who went ex-dividend on March 14th, pay date on March 31st, and the trailing 12 months yield on this company is 4.48%. Alpha Metallurgical, isn't that fun to say, announced this week an increase in their dividend by 5.3%. The ex-dividend date was on March 14th with a pay date on April 3rd, and the trailing 12 months yield for this company is 1.11%. Applied Materials has announced a 23.1% increase in their dividend. Forward yield is going to be at 1.12%. And they also approved a new $10 billion share repurchase authorization, which is a supplement to the previous authorization, which had $4.7 billion remaining at the end of quarter 1, 23. They go ex-dividend on May 24th with a pay date on June 15th. A little bit of wow factor coming out of Zim Integrated Shipping Services. They pay a dividend of $6.40 per each share quarterly. The trailing 12 months yield on this is 153.55%. They go ex-dividend on March 23rd with a pay date on April 3rd. And of note here is that together with prior dividend distributions made on account of 2022, dividend distributions for the year totaled approximately 44% of the year's net income. Technoglass has increased their dividend by 20%, giving them a forward yield of 0.91%. The ex-dividend date is on March 30th, and a pay date is on April 28th. West Shore Terminals Investment is raising their dividend by 16.7%. Forward yield is at 5.9%. The ex-dividend date on March 30th with a pay date on April 15th. They gonna go ex? They gonna go. They not gonna go. They don't go. Why is Tom Jones in my head? That's it for the dividend news this week. Now go and take a peek at this video next.